before we call the meeting to order, just want to welcome our newest council member to be sworn in a matter of minutes this evening, Donna DeBose. Donna, is it okay to call you Donna, or do you want Donita?
Please call me Donna.
All right, thanks, Donna. Or did you want Donna?
No, Donna.
Donna's good. Okay. And we'll also be swearing in Stephen Piskowski and Phil Schultz. Phil, do you have a camera, video camera, or is it just going to be voice?
He's on camera. Oh, Phil. Oh, sorry. I was looking at Stephen.
Yeah, Phil.
Phil had a camera just a minute ago.
Oh, good. Well, he's on mute. Does he know he's on mute? Maybe he doesn't.
Nope.
Oh, there you are, Phil. Okay, great. So we're just talking about the swearing in process. Do the three of you, which is Stephen, Phil, and Donna, have the oath of office in front of each of you?
I do.
I do.
Okay, we mailed them out around 4 o'clock, I think, today.
I think that's one of the tabs I don't have up, actually. I have like 67 things open here.
Yeah, it's possible. What I plan to do, and it will make it easy for you anyway, is that I will read the segments of the oath and you'll just repeat after me. But if you have the oath in front of you, it's just helpful to be looking at that if you need it. Okay, so you don't absolutely have to have it. Waiting for Donna to get back on. She's probably looking for it.
I have it now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. Really, I just barely got myself situated here. So we're going to read this. When I say, you're going to say I, and you'll say I, and then your name. Okay. And then I'll say do swear. And so I'll lead you along and you just fill in. Okay. And if you want, since I can see you all, you can raise your right hand. All right.
Looks like a left, though.
I know.
Do this.
Okay, well, we're going to begin, and this is just the oath of office for Donna DeBose, Phil Schultz, and Stephen Piskowski. And thank you for running for office, and looking forward to working with you. Okay, here we go. I, say your names.
I, Donna DeBose,
Stephen Piskowski.
Do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
do swear that I will support the Constitution.
All of you together.
I do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
Okay, you're all gonna say it together, saves time, okay?
Yep.
And that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland.
I will be
That
faithful
I will
and
be faithful and
bear
bear
true
true allegiance to the state of Maryland.
And support the Constitution and laws thereof.
and support the
And
Constitution
support
and
the
laws
Constitution
thereof.
and laws thereof.
And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
And that I
Yeah.
will, to the best of
My skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice,
diligently
and
and
faithfully,
faithfully, without
partiality
partiality
or prejudice, execute
execute the office of, and you say your name,
execute the office of council member of the town of Garrett Park
Park,
Council member of the town of Garrett Park.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution,
Constitution and the laws
laws
of this state.
Thank you very much. I want to
Thank you.
Okay.
give you a hand all. Okay, I appreciate that. I wanted to just say a couple words before we actually open the office, open the meeting, Andrea, if you don't mind. I just wanted, this is a little bit, I'm winging it a little bit here. I just want to make a mention about the value of public service at the local municipal level. It's not easy, unlike higher levels of public office, at higher levels in larger areas of city and state and federal. Here at our local level, especially within this town, we actually interact with our residents more so than at any other higher level. And it can be a difficult time to want to be helpful and be listening and to be able to compromise. And that's among ourselves as council members and the mayor and even the town manager. I invite her in this, and then with residents. But I think the biggest role, in addition to the transparency and efficiency, is to be able to compromise. And I just want to keep that in the forefront of everybody's ideas about what it means to, run for public service. And I hope that, throughout this next year that, we treat each other respectfully and try to avoid any public criticism, and also always show appreciation for the good work that we all do. And with that, again, I want to welcome Donna as a new council member to the town council, and to again thank Phil and Stephen for running and being on the council to serve. Okay, we will now call the meeting to order. And it's 6:39, just if that helps everybody. And you want to do the roll call just so we have it on tape, Andrea?
Sure.
This is for tape, for recording people. So that's what we do this.
Yep.
What got changed there? It's not 6:39, it should be 7:39.
7:39.
My God, thank you, Phil. Geez, it would have been an awful long meeting if I finally tuned into the right time. I would have thought, what happened? Okay, thank you. 7:39.
You want me to go ahead and do the roll call then? I didn't know if you were asking generally or me specifically.
No, I was, go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Thank
All right. Jerry Lee.
Yes, present.
Okay. And Stephen,
Here.
Phil,
Present.
Donna,
Present.
and Mario.
Here.
Thank you. All are present.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay. Approval of agenda. Is there any change on the agenda for tonight?
I was gonna, if it's okay with everyone else, do a quick update on Montgomery County Thrive 2050 plan and their ZTA 20-07. That's a county council thing.
Okay, let's go ahead and we'll add that. Where do you want that, Stephen? Just under town hall or before town hall?
I could do them back to back if that helps.
Sure. Which one do you want to do first?
I'll do the town hall first.
Okay, so following that, you'll do an update on Montgomery 50 Thrive.
Mhm. And it's zoning ZTA 20-07.
Okay.
It's part of the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. My earbuds falling out. Okay, are there any other changes? If no, and I don't hear any yeses, would council like to vote on the agenda, please? Are you all in favor?
All in favor?
Okay. What? Did somebody ask me something?
No, all in
Okay.
favor, I said.
Okay. All right, great. So Jerry Lee, let me just hear the yay, okay? I didn't hear you. Okay. And Stephen, you called for it, okay? Phil?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay. And Donna?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Mario?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Trying to get my screen to set up correctly here, folks. Bear with me. I don't know why I can't get this right.
It looks okay.
Yeah, usually I have the time in the lower corner so I can watch it, but okay. Thank you. Okay, that was approved. How about approval of minutes? Any changes to the minutes? April 12th, 2021. If I don't hear anything, we're just gonna, I'll call each name, okay? So let's go. Jerry Lee,
I'm
Yay.
agree with the minutes, no changes.
Stephen?
No change.
Okay, Phil.
I'm okay with the minutes the way they are.
Okay. Donna, you're present for this. You don't have to vote if you don't want, but you may vote.
I was present at the last meeting, so I'll say yes, approved.
Okay. And Mario.
Approved. Best minutes ever.
Thank you. What was that?
Nothing.
Okay, unanimously approved. I have 744. Okay, any presentations by residents participating on the call tonight?
You may need to unmute yourselves, or you will need to unmute yourselves if there are residents that have something they want to say.
Sounds like there isn't. So we will move forward, okay?
See how easy this is, Donna? Piece of cake.
Okay, let's go to the action
I'm
item.
viciously taking notes though, anyway.
Action item. Now I think we're back on time almost here. 7:44 still, almost 7:45. Okay, this is the adoption of ordinance 2021-4 FY22 budget. This is for adoption. In April, we had the introduction. I think there were a couple changes along with the vote to approve introduction. So is there anything you want to say first, Andrea? And then if there's still any discussion by council members before we take it to vote?
The only change that I pointed out, I think I pointed this out in an email to council, is that when we made the change during the introduction that increased the salary line item, line 10.1 to include $10,000 for contingency. When I talked through it with our accountant, we agreed that it would make sense to also increase line 10.4 for payroll taxes because it's a percentage of the salary line item. This is being probably potentially overly cautious, but I'd rather be overly cautious here. And then because that increased, then I had to decrease line 17.1 by a little bit, the contingency, but this is all part of the same change that was made at the last meeting. So there were no substantive changes made between the introduction and this version.
Okay, can you point out, unless I have it somewhere, I see the highlighted number that changed for payroll taxes. How much did it go up by? Just
The contingency 17.1 used to be 40,000.
oh, where are we?
So just under.
Okay, so we're at 660, 765 or something. Okay,
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, so that those were the two changes made.
Oh, sorry, I have one more thing to point out. In the ordinance language at the bottom paragraph, in the introduced version, I did not include information related to refuse. I put it in on this version, and the reason is because I know that we're going to be going out to bid for that. I discussed with our attorney, and we agreed I needed to include that in the ordinance still. So I will update that after we go out to bid. If we need to update this, we can do it. We'll do it at a later date. We'll do a technical amendment at a later date if needed.
Okay, so this line with FY 2022 municipal refuse collection fee,
Right. Yep.
that's been added, right?
Yeah, and that's typical language that's included in the ordinance.
Okay, one of the things I'd like to do then, Andrea, and you know, your input for sure on this is, because in addition to the additional bonus funding we put in salary line, that we made a change to payroll taxes now, as well as the sentence in the ordinance, that we probably, when we introduce this for adoption, that we introduce it with those two changes, because the introduction that we approved last council, that the council approved last council meeting, was only for that bonus line, right? So we probably ought to just do it for the record that council is voting, if they so choose, to adopt with the 2 additional changes, one in the ordinance language and one for the taxes, payroll taxes. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think they would just be approving the adopted version. There can be changes in between the introduced version and the adopted version. So it would depend on if they were just adopting the version as is, they would just be voting to adopt it. But if they have additional changes, then we'd be adopting it as amended.
So that's where I'm getting at. Are you saying that they don't have to adopt as amended here?
No, the changes are already in here. It's only different from the introduced version.
Yeah.
So the version that the version that was approved was introduced as amended. And so that included just the increase to line 10.1 and then a decrease to line 17.1.
Mhm.
And so this version, the version for today, incorporates additional changes, but they're already in this version. So if there's no additional changes, they would just be voting to adopt this. And if they have additional changes, then those changes would be adopted as amended.
Okay. I will follow your lead on this. Although
I think
I'm,
it's consistent with how we've done all of our
Hmm.
ordinances. If we have changes in between the first reading and the second reading, that
I
it,
just thought we adopted with those amended changes reflected in the new budget schedule, budget document.
will council be voting on what's in front of them, right? So what was posted would be the version that they're voting on.
You're saying only if they made changes tonight.
Night, right? Then it would be adopted as amended. Yeah.
Okay, if you're all right with that. Okay. Well, if nobody, does anybody have any, want to discuss this, not this action per se, but anything about the budget? Are we good to go for the vote?
I have a general kind of question / concern about it. Like, I was noticing, I missed the last meeting, so I didn't have a chance to comment on it then, but I'm noticing like the fiscal year 19 operating budget, we were just under $1 million. Now we're just under 1.4. So that's like 40% in, if my math is correct, in 3 years. And then on the flip side, capital or the expected revenues keep getting forecasted as declining. We do end up with those big carryovers. I just really feel like this, just don't understand this pattern. It just feels like it's not very strategic as far as like funding the capital projects. So I'm really leery about supporting continuing this pattern. I've been noticing it for, this is my 5th year in council. I noticed that change the last couple of years. It just seems like the operating keeps going up, and then and we've had a lot of debate about what the expected revenues are. Just
Well,
seems just a
Stephen,
lot different than what I'm used to with budgets. So.
Right, Stephen, I appreciate that you're bringing this up because I know that you've been on all the email strings where this has been discussed, you know, ad nauseum, in exhaustion. So I'll say it for the benefit, and Andrea can chime in, but we have had 2 really unusual years. Now we have consistently and with historic, preface to under budget the revenue a bit. And because of COVID, because of the American Jobs Act, we maybe had done a little bit more in 2019 and we got more back. But then COVID came and we did it again. But more so, and I've made this point to people, if we had budgeted to the penny, and even, for every revenue dollar we thought we would really get, and even though we don't have a good crystal ball, and then made a zero balanced budget where operations is everything, we would never still have hit that operating budget down to 0 because of the last 2 years where our operations activities were really low. Now, we're hoping you're going to see some you're going to see some surplus again, because we haven't been spending much in the beginning of in this FY21 year. I do hope, and I think Andrea agrees, that we're kind of going to get back on it more realistically as COVID, starts to disappear. So we would
Talking about capital or operating?
I'm talking about operating. And so
Okay.
when we have the budget at mid-year, or if you all want to do it sooner, because we anticipate there'll be a surplus, we have the option to go ahead and put more in the town projects on the capital.
That's what I've been asking for years. I guess that, and I know there's the debate about the, we could talk all night about it. We have various opinions about the expected revenues. I guess the one that's more, gives me more pause is the operating budget keeps going up, and it does look like it's up 40%. It just seems like that's a pretty steep incline, and it makes me concerned. Like, it just seems like there's a lot of line items where it's a pretty hefty amount of cushion. And I've been noticing a tendency, like I can't remember the last time we reviewed something where it was like a major outlay by the town that would trigger the town's procurement policy, and we actually reviewed it and voted on what that was and what that total was at a council level. Two examples of that are the paving of the eastern block of Oxford Avenue or Oxford Street. I drove around the corner and noticed it was paved, but in the past, we normally had reviewed those to say, well, there were, such and such bids, and this is why this one was selected. What?
You know who paved that?
No.
That was WSSC. We didn't pave that. They paved that whole block.
Okay.
From Weymouth up to Keswick.
Yeah, but that was great. It was weird. It just like it never got brought up in a council meeting. It just kind of happened.
Surprise to us. We didn't even ask them.
Yeah.
And that was done early of 2020. I don't even know if we had whether we were even in COVID yet. So
that was paved after it was paved after the sidewalks were done over there.
There was one that was done recently that was also them though. It was also,
where was that?
They did it too. Yeah, that was the one we deferred. The other one I never heard anything about. That we had the project manager hired for SRTS. I have no idea for how much, or how many hours, what the rate was, what the total was. The project manager that was hired for SRTS, I have no idea what the total, the hours, the wages, what the proposal was, and council never voted on that. Like, unless that's under the town procurement policy, I was curious, like, how did that go through?
This was discussed at a council meeting, but I can speak to the operations costs. I think there's a danger in Monday morning quarterbacking several years later. But if you look at
that was last year.
Costs, if you look at personnel costs, for example, we added an additional staff member. Some of this gets into things that would probably be more appropriate for an executive session, but there's my salary versus my predecessor's salary. If you look at town administration, you've got me being on maternity leave, that's costs. You've got various contract services. And I've asked council about this. This has come up, I think, every year that I've been here, that there's a decision that needs to be made, and this is council's decision to make, and I will, proceed accordingly. But if the desire is to get things done, then that costs money to hire people to help us get things done. If we want to spend less, then less is going to get done. So right now, for example, there's an RFP for tree services that is on the website. There's an RFP for trash services that's under development. There's an RFP for the copier and printer that's under development. There's a series of RFPs that I've kept Debbie on as a contractor to help get some of that stuff done. Otherwise, it would just be a backlog. It'd be very hard to get to that. So it's just one example, but I mean, that costs money for us to be able to make progress to get some of those things done. So that, I think that speaks to a lot of the town administration items. There's also IT. We really didn't do much by way of IT. It was not a good way to have a town government function. If we want it to be professional, we have to spend the funds and have safety and security to get us where it needs to be. For town committees, the arboretum costs are part of that. Also, we hired an archivist who is wonderful, and she has her master's degree and it was required for us to become an archive. So there's a certain wage that accompanies that.
That's our official.
I could go through.
Yeah, they probably don't need to go through every one. I wouldn't want, and I wouldn't expect it to be flat. I guess it was kind of a little bit surprising that it's gone up that much in 3 years. And I don't think, I'm just trying to find things that were really that much different than 2019. I know certain costs have escalated, but I think the quantity of things that get done around town are not that much different.
You know, like
That's the point. I'm sorry, Andrea. I think that's the point I'm trying to make, Stephen, is
Mm.
you said the point of the activity doesn't seem like it's been much different. And that's, I'm saying, we haven't had a chance to do much. We had staff
Okay.
all last year, not all always in,
Yeah.
working every day. I mean, it was totally different.
So I think we beat this up. Hey, listen, I think we beat this subject to death a month ago. Steve, I know you were on the call. We spent an hour, well over an hour and a half on this meeting, just discussing this exact point. The point's been made. I don't want to rehash what we just went through a month ago, guys. I really don't. So
I appreciate that.
That's why I usually don't bring this up, because I feel like you always get this same pattern. Like that's why I'm usually, hesitant to bring it up. But that's just a concern I've had growing over the last, couple of years.
Yeah.
So I would just like us all to, take a look at it and see what we can do to just be mindful of that, in the future. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for echoing some of the concerns of other people in town, Stephen. Thank you. And when we get our end of year audit done and we find out what our carryover balance is, I can assure you, I'm sure everybody's in agreement. I anticipate that we'll be putting more of that into capital for our town projects.
Yeah, that's my big goal. Is I do that for a day job, is kind of strategize on capital projects. It just seems a lot different than what we're used to doing.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to move on. Thanks.
Could I
Stephen.
just weigh in very quickly there? If we could just commit this coming year, I think we had a lot of challenges between COVID and Andrea's maternity leave in scheduling our budget schedule. So if I think we could maybe avoid some of these frustrations next year, if we commit to a schedule in advance, that would help us to make sure that we hit the milestones that we need to, so that we can have a full work session in advance, which we weren't able to do this year. And I think it was completely reasonable that we weren't able to do that this year, given all the challenges. But I think if we commit to that milestone schedule this year, that will help us to not feel frustrated next year. We'll have more information in front of us at earlier points.
a good point, Shirley. I think I agree. And I think this year was also just, we had this transition, Andrew was coming back, and it was, Debbie, who, did a great job, but she was just kind of holding the mantle and wasn't being proactive with the council for no fault of anyone's. It wasn't really her role. And I think this budget came up right in the middle of the process. So I agree with Shirley. I think we have a good team in place now. And I think, Andrew's back. I don't assume you're going to offer having more babies anytime soon, Andrea. So I think we can get you going. That's your job. I'm just not my business, but hopefully we could, not appease, but listen to what Stephen and Shirley are saying. And I agree. I just think we need to not revisit the same debate every call. That's all I'm saying. Just to move forward.
I think that overall, like my biggest concern is just the change in, or one of the biggest concerns is that we see things that meet that town procurement policy limit that we actually vote on as the way it had been done in the past. I just hadn't seen it done in a while. I didn't know about the one on Oxford, but the other one, I still don't know the answer on that. So
I think
something I would ask we work on in the coming year. So.
Some of the RFPs that are currently out right now, for example, the tree maintenance and the trash, those are contracts that would be brought to council before they would be committed to. They're multi-year contracts that would put us over the $25,000 threshold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my main ask, is that anything like that we vote on, is that the way it had been done. That's why that procurement policy was set. So.
That's the way we're doing it, Stephen. We had nothing to do with WSSC.
What
We
was
didn't
the-
ask them, we didn't pay them, we didn't ask them to do it. So that, I want to close the door on that because I know we need to be moving forward on this. And I
So you're
can,
not going to answer about the town project manager, how much
well, I
that
was
was?
just gonna tell you about that. We got council approval on that because it was a fast moving, action that we needed to bring somebody in. And that person is still working for us.
I remember distinctly being on a call talking about that. There was a bunch of discussion about, the overall merits of doing that. And a lot of people raised a lot of different concerns. You had said you were going to get back to us with a lot of information. And then we got a message like the next day that that person had been hired. We never heard how much for, to this day.
I think we did quote that. Didn't we have that quoted?
There was some discussion about hourly rates, whether, was it the high end of that industry or the low end of that industry, and some debate back and forth on it, but never saw any proposal about what was done. And I was under the very distinct impression that more information was going to come back to us to kind of, assuage the concerns that it was a sole source thing, and there was some debate about, what to do with it. But we just got the message that a person was hired. I still had never even seen this person.
I believe my recollection is that council agreed that this person would be hired, but only for the sidewalk project, and that Mayor
Right.
Kaki and I would come back to council if we wanted to keep this person on for additional projects, or somebody like this for additional projects.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that too. It was very distinct that we
That's all he's
said
doing.
that. Yeah, okay,
And,
so we still don't know how much and whether that was over the procurement amount.
It would have been over the procurement amount anyway, Stephen.
So,
I mean,
So-
this was an exigency. This was an emergency act, which is another reason why you can have it as a JOFOC, a justification for other than pulling
oh,
income.
God, just move on. Please move on. This is absurd.
Yeah.
So,
It is absurd
Mhm.
because I'm not going to do the job that the project manager is doing. Unless you guys want to pay me $125 or $250 an hour.
We'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's fine by me. Beating a dead horse here. Okay, let's move on. So does anybody want to ask the question? The question is whether you want to take this to a vote to adopt.
So I'll move to adopt khaki.
Okay. So you're going to, you'd like to
Well,
make a motion,
oh, sorry, I'm making a motion to adopt this.
ordinance 2021-4.
Yeah, I don't have it up in front of me, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let
Okay,
me get it. Let me get it out. Let me pull it up. Hang on, so I don't get it right. Hang on. Sorry. Sorry. Hang on. Yes, adopt ordinance 2021-4 fiscal year 2020 budget.
FY22 budget, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that, now we have two female voices, so I don't know.
No, that
who-
was Donna.
All right, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
If I hear, how about any nays? Any absentees?
I'll vote nay.
What, Stephen, you're gonna
I
vote?
voted nay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go through it. Jerry Lee,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
and Mario.
Aye.
You also introduced, sorry, and Donna, you also seconded, so that's good. All right, so we have a 4-1 vote. Okay, the motion is approved and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you, everybody. It's 8:07. Okay, we are supposed to give 2 council meetings advance notice, I think, is it? This is May, June, whether or not to have a town council meeting summer hiatus. which would be when, July or August, Andrea?
I think it's normally been August, right? But I think it could be either one, yeah.
We have to do it 2 meetings ahead, right?
Yes, I think that's correct.
Okay.
Typically.
This
do.
one would count and then June would count. So council, do you have a preference on July or August? On when you'd like to take a break and not have a council meeting?
August from Phil.
August for
August for
Stephen.
Donna.
Sounds like we got 3 already. Mario, did you,
I don't care. It doesn't matter. Whatever works for everybody. It's fine. I don't care.
Gary Lee, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, so we'll take August as the hiatus. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We're gonna move to town updates, 809. SRTS. The most recent was waiting for a second ADA inspection for compliance of our sidewalks and ramps. And that did occur. There were still some issues, but nothing to portend that there would be any having to redo anything. There was some concern about a slightly raised ramp over by Montrose and Waverly, and also the ramp at Claremont and Montrose, still greater than 2%. But we believe that this is not an issue that they're going to make us have to redo. So everybody just says it's going to get it passed. Now, I haven't seen the stamped approval from the actual officials because the actual decision makers were not present on the inspection, but that's what everybody says is going to happen. So that's where we are. We are also in the final, I guess, negotiations of reconciling the budget for this. We had paid Patriot their invoices. We still have the September one, which has been updated and reconciled multiple times, that we will be paying, I suspect, this week. There were some invoices in the past that the state highway didn't want to reimburse us for everything because either there was paper submittals of material deliveries that they couldn't account for back at that time, or there was a question about linear feet and quantity of a product. But we have totally reconciled everything, so we don't expect there to be an issue there. What's left now is the liquidated damages that Patriot wanted to push back on, but State Highway has our back. And so we're looking at approximately $7,000 of liquidated damages to be assessed for not finishing the project by August 31st. God, it's really almost a year now going on. So anyway, that's where we are. I'm hoping things will wrap up. We haven't had any federal audit yet. They did a document review. Actually, they didn't. They were supposed to have a document review by the state and they didn't do it. So that's still yet to come. But we should be pretty good on that because that's something that Ryan Treat, the project manager, has been working on. That's all I have on SRTS. Train horn, Phil?
I sent out today actually it's this evening, I sent out the copy of the train horn report to everybody to take a look at.
Oh.
See if I can do this if you like.
Did that include the survey?
Yes, it did. Yes, it was the survey. Actually,
Oh, okay. It's the survey. Okay.
To show everything that was done. I'm just gonna see if I can find it again.
Was that who was that sent to, Phil? The council members?
Yes,
Or,
this would be
Okay.
all the council members. Donna, I had to send it to your personal email because
That's quite all right.
other
I've
one-
read it. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Before we go off that, Phil, Andrea, could you give, for the record, what Donna's email address is for the town
Yep.
email?
Sure, it'll be Council Donna, DONA @garrettparkmd.gov.
Dona. Okay, great. All right.
Now, if you'd like, I can either share it with you now, or we can look at it later. It just depends on what you'd like to do. What I'm thinking I'd like to do, though, on this subject is to have everybody look at it. If there's any comments or questions, to send them to me. And then if you agree with the conclusion or not, because if you agree with the conclusion, what I would propose is that we basically abolish the committee or the task, consider it closed, at least for right now.
Okay. My 2 cents on this, and everybody else, please, feel free to chime in. But Phil, I thought we went over the survey, at least verbally, pretty well at the last council meeting. I mean, you kind of gave some of the stats and stuff. I just wanted to see the actual numbers. So I don't feel like I have to ask any further questions, but I now defer to council.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, was there any calculation done of the percentage of negative responses, in the sense of responses that were not favorable of the horn, to the citizens that lived closest to the proximity?
I didn't do a calculation because I can't correlate them. I can tell you that, for example, 33% of the respondents live near or across from the tracks, and yet 50% of the people who took the survey said it didn't bother them. So it's difficult for me. I can't, because it's anonymous. I don't know who actually answered what,
Phil, you said 50% said they didn't, that the whistle didn't bother them.
It's
Did you say 50?
50.
Oh, I thought it was higher than.
Well, it's a little higher than that, but what I'm looking at is, for example, if you look at the way this thing is, let's see now, hang on a second, scroll down. If we look at it, and it's on question 1. So question 1 is on a scale from 1 to 10, how much does the train horn bother you? And using the first two, which not at all, or number 2, which would be like one step above that, that ended up being, that was 50% of the responses right there.
Yeah, okay.
Versus 10, 9, and 10 being extremely annoying, and 9 being, of course, right next to it. Why, that was slightly over 15% of the responses. So the whole thing was loaded towards not at all. And then if we go down a bunch further to, hang on a second here, question 8, where do you live? We had 33%, approximately 33% of the people lived is the house that was either across the street or their house abutted the train tracks. And the next group, 35% approximately, my house is on the north side of Strathmore, but not included in the above, meaning that they're not one of the ones that's abuts or is across the street. So you could say, in round numbers, 70% of the people were on the north side of Strathmore, 33% being up against the train tracks, and we got 50% of the respondents basically saying it doesn't bother them at all, or it hardly bothers them, I guess is the way you could look at too.
I couldn't quite. I agree. You can't really do the correlation.
No, you can't.
Does that answer? And for now, and maybe Phil's suggestion that we all look at this again, and if we have questions, get back to him, and then we decide what to do. Or do you have other questions, or anybody else?
I have some other questions, but I think it'd be better if I just go over this again and just send them to Phil, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to do so.
that's great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Phil. Wow.
Thanks, Phil.
Jerry Lee, you got a lot going on in the Porcupine Woods entrance off Claremont. Got anything more to say about it?
Right. Well, I hope everybody will have a chance to visit Porcupine Woods if you haven't recently. The contractor rebuilt the stair entrance from Claremont and improved the path with wood chips, a little over half of the path. And then all of the plantings have been put in, the new trees. So many thanks to the subcommittee led by Kathy Benjamin and supported by resident Allie Pierce for the design. To put together that restoration plan and work with Andrea to put together the procurement for the work. So Andrea, I think you guys did a great job making that happen quickly. Also, the committee is working on spring planting and actually the town maintenance staff they've already planted 12 trees and 2 more were going in this week by the nursery directly. And the committee has been working with, and the town staff are working with Phil Normandy, the town arborist, on finalizing the pruning list for the spring. And then Andrea also put in her town manager's report, and she mentioned it earlier that the RFP for the tree work is out on the street. So that's it for Arboretum and Porcupine Woods, unless there are any questions.
How many trees were planted right there by the entrance?
Was
You remember?
17.
Okay.
I'd have
There.
to look at the plan.
And they all have netting to protect against the cicadas.
Right.
Yeah. Who did that? Was that the
Empire, the contractor provided the netting as part of
You
the
did that? Okay.
project.
All right.
I have a quick question. Was wondering about the trees themselves also. With the trees there, and this might not be at the appropriate time, but I'm going to throw it out there anyhow. With the trees planted there, I guess there's no possibility, and I hope not, that there would be any additional remediation necessary in the future, because without that slope there, there's not much access, is my point.
Oh, you mean additional stormwater work?
Yeah,
Or
Yes.
removal of other things.
mhm.
Right. I mean, so this project was to restore the natural elements after the major stormwater management work had been done as part of the SRTS project last year. So that was a pretty major addition of riprap and the stormwater management part. So I don't think we anticipate anything in the near future for that to be required again.
Okay, thank you. It was just.
And this will help with the
to
slope
follow.
stabilization to have the plant.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised, 17 trees. Wow, would have never guessed.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crowded. I take your point. I mean, if we have to get in there and remove any bigger trees, it could be difficult. but
Yeah.
We'll take that.
That's why we call it Porcupine Woods.
Yeah.
You can also
Good one. Good one.
come from the other end too, right?
Were they planted at the other end? I don't know that I saw any.
No,
No, it was just around the Claremont.
no, just on the side.
I think
Maybe
Phil's
I'll-
saying they could come in the other end with equipment. I think it was Phil's point.
Well,
Oh, I see.
You could try. That's true.
Let's hope not in general, but
Let's
yes.
hope not. Exactly.
The big
Okay.
change from, like, think about the 30s, there was almost no trees out there. It was mostly an open
Really?
field. Yeah. There was an open field with a ditch in it.
Huh.
There were some trees, but it was not a forest then.
It's one of my favorite places to be in town.
okay. Do you want to give any few words about the Strathmore redevelopment, Jerry Lee? Anything new that we're?
Yes, very briefly, because there haven't been any major new developments. The developer did submit their application, but it's not yet posted on the county website and no hearing has been scheduled.
Okay.
The local committee has been working on a draft letter for the mayor to send to the developer and another complimentary letter to send to the State Highway Administration. And I think we're pretty close on that. We've gotten input from several folks. So I think we could be ready to send that this week or next. And that will help to sort of get us on record in writing about our concerns about traffic and in particular in landscaping for sightlines as well as the views from Garrett Park.
Great. And Jerry Lee, I really, really appreciate that effort to write that letter and to coordinate the review. I have a question though, is, you've gotten some of the principal parties involved, which is excellent. But I don't recall, was the Holy Cross Academy involved in looking at the letter? And is it worth their time to do that?
So, the developer and Holy Cross Academy actually presented the preliminary plans to the committee together as a sort of cooperative entities. So I was thinking we should be sending the letter to the Academy of Holy Cross and to the developer at the same time, because they're working together. I believe that was part of the arrangement for the sale of the property, and because part of their property will get redeveloped as well as part of this process.
I know the driveway is going to be altered, but I don't know, I guess I would keep them sort of separate because, they're not a commercial entity like EYA is. What do you think, Phil?
No, absolutely not. They are basically working together, because if EYA doesn't get all their plans and so forth passed, if there's snags and holdups,
Mm-hmm.
it was told to me, and I think Jerry Lee, you were on the same call, but basically somebody had asked the question, is the property actually sold? And the answer was no, we have it under contract. And it will be sold once our plans and processes, everything's been approved, the permits are all approved.
Okay.
So in order for the Academy, now there's the Church of the Holy Cross, that's a different entity.
Yes, you've had their input, I think, right, Jerry Lee?
Yes, they've been involved as part of our subcommittee.
But the Academy of the Holy Cross is basically working with the developers, because in order for them to get their money, they have to have all those things put in place. So they are right there with the developer, because they have a very big vested interest in making sure that everything goes through untouched and unscathed.
Okay, so your idea, Jerry Lee, is to send the letter to both of them. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that we would send the letter to the Academy and the developers together, because when they did their presentation, it was actually the Academy representative who spoke first and introduced the overall project. And the developers spoke afterwards.
Maybe it might be worth having a sort of a follow-up call with them, and maybe even the Holy Cross Church. And the reason I'm saying this, I did send a comment to you, Jerry Lee. I don't know if you got it in time yet, but there has been some remarks made about whether the Academy could actually have their egress out to the Cloister Drive. And I don't know if anybody has actually taken that right to them directly, or if it's just what's sort of circling around. And I think it might be worth a discussion, because it could alleviate some of the traffic volume on Strathmore. But anyway, that's just because they have direct access to Cloister, and that could become, they're in and out. Anyway, we don't have to talk about it. It's just a thought, but I respect that you want to send the letter both to EYA and the Academy. I'm fine with that.
Okay. I think that's a valid point, and I tell you what, I'll touch base with you offline, and I'm happy to follow up with the Academy before we actually send the letter.
Okay. You all right with that, Phil?
I pointedly had asked the Academy about that, and that brought it up at least on one of the things that I was on. And their answer was no, they don't want traffic going through quote unquote their property.
Oh.
They don't want all this traffic, going by the school. So they have been, well, because of the wetlands, because of what it would take to work environmentally around the stream that goes through there and so forth, and the buffer zone, that it was a non-starter. But I agree 100% with you, but they were quite against.
They wouldn't even have to use the front entrance at all. People could come in from Cloister and leave through Cloister. They could do a little circle around the front drive and keep going back out. Doesn't seem like it's a hard lift, but
yeah, we do have a resident comment in the chat that the Academy cannot have access through the Cloister.
Really?
the academy didn't have that access. I'm not entirely sure. I wonder, actually, is Cloister even a public street or is it privately owned? Because that's development there.
And there is a bridge that goes across the water. not
Yeah,
the
that's
bridge.
Yeah.
the cloister. Yeah, I thought
And there is no road access. They would have to build the road access, I would
yeah,
assume.
their parking lot comes up right against it. I
Right.
mean, it can't be more than, you know, 30 feet away from the cloister drive. Okay.
It could be a private drive, so.
It's true.
If it is, that's a different story, isn't it? All right.
Okay, thank you, Kaki.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you, Phil. Okay, stormwater. Phil, how are we doing with Lower Rokeby?
So, and Andrea might have a slightly more up-to-date update, but we received the plan, or we received the topographical survey from the surveyors.
Okay,
And we received it through Jason, who was supposed to be integrating it with some of his stuff. And getting ready, I think, to put together some plans on what we're gonna do as far as either bridge or the overpass. And so that was part of what I was waiting for. I know Chuck was waiting for us we had to get that thing done. And it looks like both options would be viable. So I think next council meeting will probably be the time when I should be able to bring that up.
okay. And what about the riprap for erosion mitigation in the back properties of the residents? That's a separate phase? What,
That should be a separate phase.
okay, so is that getting worked into some kind of a RFP, a proposal?
I haven't looked yet. I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen anything, Andrea?
That was Jason sent us the contract engineer sent us the raw survey results 2 Fridays ago, and then he was out all last week. So I don't think he's had an opportunity to correct or sort of ground truth the raw survey results with what he knows is happening there. So I think that was one thing that needs to happen. And then there was a question that he asked that I'm not thinking of what the question even was right now, but it had to do with, I asked him about something about next steps, and he responded with a question, Phil, that I sent to you and Chuck. So what I'll do is I'll resend that email. I was out last week as well. So that's sort of where things stand right now. But I think we're at a good spot. And I think Phil's right. I think we should see some progress soon. I think we're over a big hump that we needed to get over.
Can I get a copy of that survey? I'd be curious
Yeah,
to see
again,
it.
it's just the raw results right now. So
Yeah.
I really don't want to distribute anything that would have potentially incorrect information on it. But once Jason has reviewed that and we know that we have a good survey to work with, then I can send that around.
Oh, so was it his points versus the topo map, or was it?
I don't know. He just described it to me as raw survey results and told me he hadn't even had a chance to review it yet. So I don't
Okay.
want to get ahead of him on that.
They may not have made a drawing yet then. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
when the drawing does come in, I'd be interested to look at it.
Sure.
Just in
Sure.
case I might have some recommendations.
Yep.
And if council doesn't know, or some don't know, there was a major tree that fell behind Neelam and Canetti's house that crashed through their sunroom and their deck and their garage and hit their Tesla. Do we have any update on that, or do you want to talk about that later?
I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it because I don't think it's a town tree, but it's something that Neelam and I have been communicating on. And I have something I need to double check with Jason because I don't want to just go off what Neelam and I were looking at. But I don't think it's probably going to be a town issue. So it's probably not something that's appropriate to talk about during the meeting. I think it's a private tree. So
Private property.
Are the trees in the back by I guess the dry bed when it's not raining, is that considered private property?
there is an easement, but I think this tree is outside the easement. And even if it were in the easement, this is it's very complicated. So the reason why we took the trees from the Heinzen's backyard next door out, was because those were in the creek bed. And that tree was compromised because it was in the creek bed, compromised due to stormwater coming through it. And the town has a stormwater easement. So it's a many layered issue. So
but we also took the tree, the second
I
trunk.
think it's better to not talk about it. I think it's more of a private issue. So I think it'd be best to probably close this issue for now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, this is Neelam.
Oh,
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
okay.
Okay, so you can talk about the tree later, but will you be sharing the map or the details about the stormwater with the residents who are affected?
Yeah, so Neelam, when you and I were on your property looking at the map and we were trying to figure out where the tree was, and we think that we figured it out. That was the raw survey results. So those are the results that the engineer hasn't reviewed yet.
Okay.
So you've sort of seen a section of that, but it's not
Mhm.
ready to be shared because the engineer hasn't reviewed that yet. It's just
Okay.
happenstance that I got that the day that the tree fell, the day before the tree fell.
All right. I just, as I had raised this question last time also, I wanted to have some kind of timeline as to when the work would be started, because we are being affected quite severely, and I'm kind of getting very antsy. I would like to know when the work would be started in our backyard so that we know what we need to do. Until then, we are doing nothing in the back.
So you
So
think,
last time you mentioned about 2 months from our last meeting, which was a month ago.
Mhm.
And I don't think there has been much progress since then.
Sure. So, again, we just got the raw server results 2 Fridays ago, and then the engineer was out all last week and I was out all last week. So that's sort of where we needed the server results to be able to move on to the next part of this.
Mhm. Would it be done sometime this year?
This year, fiscal year, or between now and June 30th? Or between
Now and September, October?
I mean, Phil, my understanding is that the erosion part shouldn't take that long. The other phases may take a little bit longer than that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, because basically the erosion phase once Jason approves everything and we've gone through what he's got, then I would think that we should be able to go out put together paperwork to start going out for bid.
Yeah. And it'll probably need to be out to bid for, I think 21 days is the minimum.
wait till we see what the cost is.
Mhm.
And would erosion work start first? Like,
Yes.
I understand that it's about 2 or 3 phase project. And would erosion be the first part that you would be managing?
So to answer your question, the first phase was the survey, which we now have the raw results, engineers going over. From that, the second phase is the erosion. The third phase is the crossing of
Okay,
creek down by your house there.
okay.
Great, so, okay. Okay, we'll be back in touch on all that. Stephen, do you want to talk about the town hall?
Yep, I can keep it pretty brief. I had the presentation I did, I think it was the month before last, and it went really well. I got a lot of positive feedback from folks in general, but I think it's still very much up in the air, like there were 3 major kind of schemes that I threw out there just as examples. One is to kind of renovate the town hall basically as it sits now. The second one would be to kind of really substantially overhaul it, including like jacking it up in the air to put a basement underneath of it for storage and for utilities, and really kind of change the layout inside and put a new addition on. The third option was much more ambitious, and that was to try to co-locate town buildings over on the near the train station. So look at town-owned property either next to Town Hall or next to Penn Place or across from the train station. That one had some support, but more questions than anything. So I realized that probably the best thing is to just put this out as an RFP. So start working on putting together an RFP to get an architectural firm, a planning firm to look at this and put more detailed drawings together that may help people to have difficulty in kind of envisioning the differences between these three with the drawings I did, which were really kind of more diagrammatic plans. But I think it'll help a lot of people kind of really figure out what makes most sense to the most people ongoing. I think it'll be a good way for us to do that. So I'm going to work on that. That's really it for Town Hall. Move on to the Thrive 2050. So I think a fair amount of people in town are aware of this, but I'm not sure if everybody has been. I've been tracking this. Kaki had requested me to track this issue, and Thrive 2050 is it's a new update to the general plan for the county, and it's really for Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, which kind of covers. So it's Montgomery County. It's the Thrive 2050, but they'll be looking at similar things for PG County because that's part of MNC PPC as well. And a lot of this is really updating plans from 1964. There was a general plan that really set up the Washington region for what it is now, where you see a lot of developments along corridors and then kind of wedges of spaces that are kept a little bit like slightly more natural in between those. And a lot of other municipalities around, or a lot of other regions around the country have actually copied what Washington did in the 60s, but they hadn't really made a major overhaul to it since then. They've just updated it. So now Montgomery Planning is really coming up with a new vision that they have, and they really put it into 3 prongs. One of the big things was economic health. So they're trying to look at how do we compete with the Fairfax counties and the Loudoun counties, trying to get the best possible economic growth for this county and the best possible tax base and amenities and so on and so forth. A lot of things you would expect. So they put that out there as an issue. They also put out environmental resilience. They talked about that some. I had a chance to read through the latest update of Thrive 2050, but whenever I've joined into, I've been joining into various hearings and info sessions about this, the one of the 3 prongs that really gets the most talk is, by far, it seems like 90% plus, is equitable communities. So they says on their site, we want to create a place where all residents have equal access to attainable housing, healthy foods, employment, transportation, education, and more, which sounds like pretty acceptable and expected goal. One of their big things they're looking at is trying to grow bus rapid transit, but it's not really around here. They want to really de-emphasize cars by basically not planning anymore for cars. They want to just treat it like just don't do anything that's going to help cars going forward, kind of ignore it and hope that it goes away. Is kind of their thinking. And the other thing they're also looking at is compact growth. So they want to look at compact and walkable communities, which is, it's a pretty old planning technique that's been around. It's been worked on for decades. It's nothing really new, but they're really pushing it around here. And then this kind of ties to one of the other things that's happening is while Thrive 2050 was in development, County Council, they now have that Thrive 2050 plan from County Planning, and they have that coming up for review for them and County Council. There's a hearing on June 17th, so if folks around town are interested in listening to that, it's June 17th at 7 p.m. with County Council. The registration's now open if anybody wants to testify in regards to this. I'm thinking about doing it myself. There's a coalition of other municipalities that are trying to really question a lot of what's going on in this Thrive plan and make sure that everything's really being thought through, how it's really going to work itself out versus just kind of what the broad visions are. They haven't seemed to get a whole lot of open ears on the decision makers, but they're still working pretty hard on it. But that's sort of the update on Thrive 2050. But the thing that ties to it is County Council is already, in late 2020, they put out a new zoning text amendment proposal to add what's called missing middle housing. And it's, again, that's nothing new as a concept. I remember looking at this when I was in school in the 90s. Like it's basically looking at the gap of, you would have multifamily housing, then you have single family housing in single family neighborhoods, but there's nothing in between. And the theory is that if you have 2 and 3 and 4 unit properties in a single family neighborhood that's near transit, that will get you more units and therefore, help decrease add supply and help with the housing demand, and they think lower prices and make more affordable housing. There's a ton of debate on whether or not it actually works that way, but county council is it seems enamored by this idea, so they put out their ZTA. It started with R60 zoning, which is something like Garrett Park Estates is R60, and most of Garrett Park Estates would be affected by this. Anything that's within half a mile radius of a metro entrance would, if this ZTA goes through, which it seems almost, there's no stopping it that I could see, and that's kind of what the discussion is amongst the municipalities. That's pretty much a done deal, or will be a done deal. But in that R60 zone within a half mile, you would be able to build by right a 2 or 3 or 4 unit dwelling on a single family property by right. Since then, I can't remember which one of the council members, but one of the council members suggested that it be R90 be added to it, and that counts for White Flint Park and us. And I'm trying to find the actual text on it to make sure that I'm not wrong with what I was reading about it going through, but I can't imagine it's not, because there seemed to be a lot of support by certain groups for doing this, but that would put pretty much all of Garrett Park, I think maybe one house that was outside of a mile or beyond a mile in that radius, would be, if this goes through, would be as of right 2, 3, and 4 family dwellings on single family lots. So, and a lot of the discussion is just about, is it really compatible? Is it going to be, the same things that always come up with density discussions? Is it going to be overcrowding schools? Is it going to be overcrowding other utilities and adding traffic? And is it going to be changing the neighborhood character, the scale, the appearance of places? And even historic districts have come up too. We're not the only historic district that would be affected by this. So that's sort of the update on where it is. So I'm going to keep my ears tuned in to the future discussions, including June 17th, and we'll see how it goes. But there are a lot of people really asking a lot of questions about this.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen. I have questions, but for sake of time, I think we'll
Okay.
move on. I might try to remember to email you,
Okay.
especially
Right.
about Garrett Park and
Okay.
on. Okay.
Yeah, or give me a call if you get a chance.
Okay. Thank you very much for following on that.
Mhm.
Mario, do you have any update for archive?
Sure. Some great notes from Claire. I'll be super quick. So a couple of things. She's working on archiving the oral history and just doing some of that. She's working with a group of folks who are just really volunteering a lot of their time on transcribing some of the old handwritten letters and ledgers, including stuff from the old St. James Chapel, which of course is Town Hall. That goes back to the 1890s and early 1900s. So that's great. And also working with in transcribing some old handwritten notes from the old Garrett Park Women's Club from the 1930s and 40s. So some really good stuff. I mean, it's just so fascinating when I go on the archives page and what the stuff that Claire's doing. So again, I'm always amazed by the amount of diligence that her and a team of folks that are helping her do that. So really good stuff there.
Sounds fascinating. That's great. So great to have her.
Agreed.
Do we have any update about that, Andrea? Do you want to hold off on that? Anything more on archives?
I think it's probably okay to share that Claire will be she'll be staying on in a more part-time role, focusing only on the archives part, and the town records piece will be reassigned, and that's a little bit TBD. Claire and I are working through, she's making a list of what those responsibilities are. That will help me best understand how to staff that. But she is going to be working full time. So we're gonna try and do this where she would continue to work for us up to 10 hours a week doing archive work. And as long as it works for her and as long as it works for us, we'll keep doing that. And then we'll reassess as we need to going forward. But she's been so wonderful for the town that we wanted to try to find a way to make it work if we can. And I know that she really enjoys working in the town too. So
Yeah, I hope it works out for us and for her.
I know.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to just quickly say before you give your report, you know, it's probably long overdue, but with Donna being on as new council member, could you, I will be happy to send out the current list of what everybody is responsible for. And then if you'd all email me back kind of your preferences, and then, you know, we'll try to sort it out and see what can work. But that way, Donna, you kind of get a sense of, you know, what some of the responsibilities are and what Andrea and I are allowed to delegate to council members that are administrative. And so you all can, you know, have a look at that and get back to me by email. Okay. Andrea, town report, please.
Okay, so for the monthly financial report, the April revenues, operations, and capital budgets are at expected levels. Total revenues and expenses are within projections. I also added a note here on my report about the technical correction that we adopted at the last council meeting. I won't read that word for word, that's in the report if anybody would like to see it, but it's there for the record. There were no new building permits that were issued. I understand that there are several that are in process, but none that were issued between the last meeting and this meeting. In terms of town office and maintenance highlights, again, we're still working hard on RFPs, and it sounds like, Stephen, there might be one more that will be coming down the line at some point here. Oh, you're muted.
I'll need to get with you on that one.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
And I'd like to find the last one to
Yep.
use that maybe as a helpful model. So.
Okay, sounds good. The second bullet I have on here is that the investment of town funds has resumed. So that's nice to be able to do that. And that follows that SRTS is closing out, and we still need to reserve some money for that final invoice, but otherwise feel like we have the confidence to be able to invest funds again.
And yields are up. So that's
Sorry,
good.
say that again.
And yields are up
Yeah.
where they were last year.
Yeah. Trees we already talked about. And then I just wanted to add that the town office is still not accepting town hall reservations. We've had quite a few questions about this, and I understand why people are asking. We'll continue to reassess it as long as the CDC continues to advise against gathering outside of you know, 1 or 2 households, and as long as the county isn't renting facilities, and they're not renting facilities right now, then it's not something that I think that we should be doing until those things change. So just wanted to sort of say that for the record, because I know residents are wondering.
Sort of answered a question I was going to ask, but I don't have to ask it now.
Okay, that's it for me. I don't know if anybody has questions.
Anybody have questions for Andrea?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, a question, comment. Can you have somebody take a look at the pool parking lot about restriping, because we're going to be opening, you know,
Yep.
end of the month, and I don't believe they've ever fixed that one light that is out, parking lot light that's out.
Oh, ARC was there
Maybe I'm wrong.
They did it recently.
2 weeks ago. So yeah, you might look again, and if you could let me know if it's still an issue. If we need to have them come back out, certainly we can, but they were there 2 weeks ago, so it should have been fixed at that time.
Sorry, yeah, it may have been. It's been, seems like it was a while. Then
Yeah.
the other thing is, if you know where the Vargas house is, former Vargas house at the end of Keswick there,
I don't, but I'm sure Elizabeth does.
the drain in front of it, the current resident was saying that the drain in front of it looks like it's full of a bunch of junk and may not be flowing correctly, and it's a town drain. As
Yeah.
we could take a look at it.
Yep. Yep.
It's the second one south of Oxford on the right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right, well, the time is 8:52, and without further ado, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.